And we are live, back like we never left. Stoppage Time FC, sponsored by The Scene. That's capital T, He, capital SCEN. Ron, Zach, Joe, our main man Mo behind the camera. Remember, if you're on Facebook, follow The Scene. If you in Facebook, Stoppage Time FC, the group. We talking a beautiful game. Haven't been here in a couple weeks, so we got a lot to catch up on. We're gonna try to do it as quickly and efficiently as possible. We definitely want to make sure we cover everything. So let's just get right to it. International break number 2. We are about 8 games into the Premier League, 7 depending on your schedule. I'm gonna start with my main man, Joe. Joe, it's still COVID season. It is still some weird things going on. The table looks a little weird. Talk about what's happening so far as we are now into November in the Premier League.
Well, top of the league, we got Leicester City. That's kind of one of the teams that we all were not thinking was going to be at the top come 8 games in. Southampton is a team that has struggled recently. They are sitting at 4th, which is one of the automatic bids to the Champions League. And we still got Aston Villa, Everton, all still pushing for those coveted Champions League spots. Some interesting results this past weekend. Zach's boys, Everton, have kind of fallen off a little bit, and Manchester United has gotten it together a little bit in their recent run of form. They took them out 3-1. Even with that, United is still sitting at 14th in the table, which is quite far down. Not where anybody really expected them to be at. And then my boys had the big match of the past weekend, City versus Liverpool. 1-1 draw, kind of expected a win for my guys. We had the chance there with a penalty that shockingly Kevin De Bruyne missed and pulled wide, but otherwise it was a pretty contested game. Those are kind of the two heavyweights, big rivalry. For them to finish 1-1, kind of disappointing to drop points, but it wasn't a loss, which is always good because we're sitting at 10, but they have a game in hand, which means they only have 7 of matches played so far. So if they get a win in that one, that vaults them up the table quite a bit right now because everybody's kind of packed together at the moment.
Oh.
So
12 points, not 10.
So before we jump over to Zach, Joe, you talk about Man City 10th in the table. We talked about the weirdness that is this season. So how do you just kind of feel right now? Take 10th off aside with where Man City is at right now as we getting ready to hit the real busy stretch when we come out of this international break where the games are just a crazy amount of games over the next 6 to 7 weeks.
once again, for us, it seems to be the injury bug. It's been the case for the past 2 years. And it's for whatever reason, it always tends to be the same position. A couple of years back, it was the left back position. We could not keep a bona fide left back healthy. Last year, we were going through center backs like nobody's business, and we were having to convert central defensive midfielders into center backs. And this year, at the start, it's been strikers. We've not had a first team striker pretty much the whole 7 games of the season so far. We've had Aguero's been out with the injury that he picked up in the summertime, and Jesus is just coming back to full fitness. He scored a really nice goal against Liverpool, so it's really nice to have him back. And they've been shuffling the center back pairing. We finally got our new sign Diaz to pair up with Laporte. And the team is starting to come together more with getting everybody back healthy and getting the rotation that Pep wants to have. So I'm feeling better. I'm not super worried at this point, even though they're sitting at 10th with all the injuries that they've had and with all the craziness that's going on in the world right now. You'd like them to be higher, obviously, but I'm not super concerned right now.
Swinging it up to another shade of blue and another team that has dealt with some transition, and that is Chelsea. Zach, take it away with how are things sitting at the bridge as we go into international break number 2?
Well, truthfully, they've been going really well. I'll caveat that with saying that, Christian Pulisic pulled up lame in warmups in our last match, and that hurts. He's got uh, that nagging hamstring injury, and Lampard had said, this is something that's going to bother him for the rest of his career. So he's going to have to learn how to manage whether he needs to start taking it a little bit easier in warmups or what. But it's a pain in his side. So this international break is good for one thing, and hopefully he can, finish his return to fitness. I'd really like to see him sit this out for the men's national team and not play in any type of serious role. The good thing is it's in London, so they have a match against Wales, which is in London, which will be helpful. He'll be able to rehab at the bridge while still being there with the national team. Mendy lost his clean sheet record, giving up 1 goal. I think in the last 5 Chelsea matches, they've scored 15 goals and given up 1. So they're finally starting to hit their stride. Players are starting to come into their own. And the bright spot has actually been Hakim Ziyech. He has fully returned to fitness, and he started 4 straight games. He has 2 goals and 3 assists in those 4 games. So he's been a huge contributor to Chelsea, and they're sitting in 5th right now, which is good. They like I said, they're starting to hit their stride. Havertz just came down with COVID, so the international break is actually coming at a really good time for Chelsea.
Yeah, this, coming out of the international break is going to be the most hectic time of the year. If you look at the fixtures, no matter what club you support, from the week before Thanksgiving for here in the States until about the second week in January, teams are pretty much playing 2 to 3 days a week for about the next 6 to 7 weeks. And you talk about the injuries to Pulisic, the injuries, Joe, your squad has suffered. I think it really becomes a war of attrition, and it really becomes a case of squad depth and who can rotate aside when they need to. And this is why, for me, the Man City being in 10th thing doesn't. If I was a Man City fan, that wouldn't bother me, because I think City still has a deeper squad. Chelsea still has a deeper squad, which is why I think the two of you are in really good shape. Because I look at the top end of the table, Leicester has a really good first 11, but after that, there's not a whole lot. Southampton, yeah, that's cute for now. Aston Villa, who did us very dirty at Arsenal this past week, are better than people think, but to hold up through that busy period, I don't think so. So I think what kind of starts to, I think the next 7 weeks, things kind of go back to normal as far as who we're used to seeing at the top of the table and over the next 7 weeks.
What's interesting is we talked about this when we were previewing out the year, and we talked about Liverpool and how they refuse to address depth, and it's already coming back to bite them. I think they started someone like Nate Jones or something at center back the other day.
Yeah, I had never heard of him. But they lose Van Dijk. That's the big injury. But then
Fabinho's down.
Trent Alexander-Arnold maybe is back after international break. Probably, likely, maybe not.
They were saying 4 weeks for him.
Yeah, so James Milner probably has to play right back for them for a couple. So it becomes about depth, and I think this is where Chelsea, Man City, and as bad as they look, a team like United can make ground just simply because you have depth in the squad.
Yep, exactly. You have teams like you said that have good 11s but have no 12. Whereas, you know, like, and this is a luxury that I love having in Chelsea is our third striker is Olivier Giroud, a World Cup winner, you know, and that's a luxury that not a lot of teams have.
And that's what it comes down to. So speaking of United, and I think the the Ole Gunnar Solskjaer 9 Lives tour just continues.
He's on
Every
13.
time he's about to get fired, he finds a win out of somewhere. It was PSG a couple weeks ago. Arsenal, we beat him. He's back on the hot seat. Everton, he wins. Everything is back. He beat Everton after having lost to Istanbul. The Ole Gunnar Solskjaer 9 Lives tour continues. And I know, Joe, the reason I'm going to come to you is because Pochettino has been heavily linked with this United job. I also read, and you maybe can confirm or deny this, if Pep were to decide to go at the end of the year, Poch could be the sort of first in line to replace him. So, do you think Ole survives, let's say, this busy period? And two, would you take Poch at City if Pep does decide to go at the end of the year?
Well, like you said, it seems like United gets the result at the most opportune time to keep him afloat for an extra week or two. I think it really is going to come down to this busy period, like you said, and I think they're going to maintain the course through the Christmas holiday with all these heavy fixtures going on. That's really not the time you want to make a big change, in my opinion, because you're not going to have any time to really practice and to get any time with your new coach implementing any kind of new scheme or new system, because you're playing every 3 days pretty much. So there's just not time for your manager to get enough reps in with his players. So I think he's going to stay. If Pep and Man City decide to part ways, because it's a two-way street at this point, they both have been saying, because his contract is up, he has been maintained that if City want him to stay, then he'll stay. He doesn't have any desire to leave at this point, but it comes from them too. It's the same tactic that he takes with his players, is that if he could want them to stay all he wants, but if they don't want to stay, then that's up to them and they'll make the decision there. But from everything that I have read from both sides, they want to both continue this partnership. So I don't anticipate him leaving after this season, but if it does happen, I think Pochettino would kind of be one of the first names on the list to go to, since he has a ton of Premier League experience. He's a younger guy still, and generally relates pretty well to players. So I think he would be for sure on the short list. I would also put Arteta on that list, even though he's back at home. I would really love to see him come back, because he developed a really close relationship with a lot of players that are currently there. So that'd be a pretty seamless transition back. I don't think he would leave Arsenal, but that would be another person on my wish list. And then after a season or two, I think it'd be nice to bring my boy Vinny back from the Belgian league and have him take over. That'd be a dream scenario for me, because he's one of my favorite players of all time. Mr. Company.
The Arteta scenario is not out of question. I think simply because if you go to Man City and forget about, people make the jokes about City, the money, blah, blah, blah. But if you have resources and structure like they have as a manager, I don't see why you wouldn't want it.
You crave that, yeah.
Apart from the money, they have, they got the great facilities, the great structure. Like, the ownership is going to do everything they can, apart from not only just big transfer fee, but they're going to do everything to support you. So if I am Arteta, with our board at Arsenal, which is shaky at best as far as supporting the manager, I think if you're Arteta and this Arsenal season doesn't go too far left, you probably do have one eye on the Man City job, if not next year, the year after. So I think that bears watching. Zach, some other things in the league that are of interest so far in the first, I guess, almost a quarter of the season so far.
Well, just to piggyback off that Arteta comment, wouldn't that be like the ultimate betrayal, though? Didn't Arteta play pretty much his entire career at Arsenal? I know he coached at City with Pep, but
it would. I personally wouldn't feel betrayal because I get why you leave. I just think what's above Arteta is so in flux, for lack of a better word, that if I'm him, I look at this, where can I succeed? And I don't know if number one, he has the, if I'm a manager, I don't know if I have the patience to deal with our board, nor do I know if my board has the patience to deal with you. I think Arsenal right now is a 5-year rebuilding job, if we're being very honest.
yeah,
Are you? I don't, and I just don't know if I'm Arteta, if I want to spend 5 years doing it. And then number two, if City becomes available to me, we could talk about history and tradition and the romance of the game. That's cool. But if I got all the bells and whistles that City can provide for me,
yeah. I guess it's one of those things you equate it kind of to any sport. If the Lakers come calling, or if the Yankees come calling, or if the Cowboys come calling, like no matter what you feel for that organization, it is that marquee, that marquee spot. So yeah, I mean, I get it. It feels dirty. It's almost like if I watched Frank Lampard, leave and go to United, or something. Maybe you went across and went to Tottenham, and that'll never happen. But that is just, I don't know. It's got that dirty feeling to it.
Tottenham is the only job he could take where it would be like, okay, that's kind of nasty. But City is Google. Like if you work in IT and you really want to work with the best stuff, you work at Google, you work at NASA. You're not working at Radio Shack and Nintendo. You want to work with the best stuff. So I just think that it's gonna be a prime job, whether Pep stays or not. It's too much to work with there. That if you're a young manager, that you're like, this looks really appealing.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. As far as other stuff in the league, though, like the United situation is really interesting to me. I think, Joe, you kind of hit it on the head. This next transition period, this next 4 weeks or so, 6 weeks really, to take you through the winter is crucial for them. Me personally, if I'm an outsider looking in, if Ole doesn't somehow break the top 8, and I'm thinking maybe even the top 6 by the time the winter transfer window comes up, I don't think United. I don't think he's there. I don't know if they can recover that much. They have a very favorable set of fixtures coming up in the Premier League. They got West Brom, Southampton, West Ham. They have a game against City. But other than that, they got Sheffield, who hasn't won a game yet, Leeds, Everton, Leicester, and Wolves. And that takes you through the end of the year. Those are all very, very winnable games. And if you don't put some serious points on the board, I think United and Woodward's finally gonna cut ties and let this experiment die, which I think they should have a while ago, but that's neither here nor there.
They've shown the willingness to pull the trigger on changing managers as well.
Yeah.
Since Sir Alex has been gone, so it wouldn't be out of character for their ownership to make a change.
It would be interesting. I think, especially when you're talking about, obviously the next transfer window opens up. You know, are you willing to spend money on a manager? Or are you willing to spend money on players for a manager that you don't necessarily really want to keep? Like, the names will be linked, and we'll talk about that closer too. But if I'm bringing in Big Star X for this manager, I'm like, and he's not gonna be here.
I guess a lot will depend on what manager gets named. If it's a caretaker to get them through the end of the year, then obviously they're not going to bring in anything, and they're going to let this season kind of die and hope for the best. Hope they get into the Europa and pray. But if they somehow can land a Pochettino, or they can pry Julian Nagelsmann, then maybe they'll say, hey, maybe we can hit the ground running and get a head start.
Yeah, the timing in which they do this becomes really, really key if you're gonna do it. Because my whole thought was if you're not gonna do it this week, you're really stuck with him for the next 7 weeks.
Yeah.
If it doesn't happen, well, as we take this show, it's a Tuesday. If you don't do this by the weekend, then you're stuck with him until January, with whatever the results are, good, bad, or indifferent.
And that's the thing. I think that they literally are doing this lose one, win one. And so I think, upper management is scared to pull the trigger. They're scared, had he lost to Istanbul and Everton, it makes their decision easier. But he's playing this wishy-washy, game where, oh, I'm still here. Oh, just kidding. I'm going to lose to Istanbul at home, I think, and that's tough. It's real tough.
Yeah.
But, truth be told, I say that they lost to Istanbul and they're still top of their group.
Right. And I think that again becomes a potential saving grace is, well, he gets us out of the Champions League group. So we're into the round of 16. Can we really fire him if he gets us out of it? It's a very weird situation they have at United. And I think they're going to end up sticking with him, which for me personally, and I will speak for most non-Man United fans, the longer he stays, the better. For me.
Give him a 10-year contract.
Completely agree.
Make him the next Sir Alex.
I'm cool with it. I want Ole to win just enough matches to convince to trick them that they believe he's this great man. The longer he stays, the better this is for all of us who are not Man United fans. We're going to hit our new segment shortly. Know Your Role, America's new favorite segment. But before we get into that, anything else, fellas, from around Europe, some of the other leagues that caught your eye, or things as we head into this international break that kind of raised eyebrows a little bit?
Zlatan. I don't need to say anything else. The man he's what, almost 40? I think he's 39. Leading the Serie A in goals. He's got AC Milan in first place. And I just saw today they're making a movie about him.
Why not? He is we here in America we use the word freak very often to describe athletes, but he is that. He's a thing, and it's cool though. Actually, I think Serie A has kind of been there. First of all, Juventus wins the league every year, it's number one, so that's part one of the problem. Serie A has kind of been down in the dumps for a while. A Zlatan-led revival of AC Milan is pretty cool, to be honest. And The old lion just keeps, it's bicycle kicks, it's leaping headers, it's just being Zlatan. Just, what can you say?
Mind you, not only is he 39, he also had coronavirus earlier this season. So he had COVID. He's
Yeah.
39, and he's still leading the league in goals.
That's all you got to say right there.
Yeah.
That is him. Joe, anything else around Europe that caught your eye? Things going into the break, or?
I find it very interesting that with all the drama going on in Barcelona, that they're still full 3 points clear in their Champions League group. And they are still putting in decent amount of goals. I mean, their goal differential is 7 right now. So they're still, even though they haven't looked very convincing, if you just look at the raw numbers, just at the stats, it's not that bad. But when you look deeper into it, the Messi situation just continues to catch my eye, just because he's the biggest, one of the 2 biggest names in soccer, and that's one that I kind of peek at quite regularly when I'm looking through my soccer news. So
I don't know how much you guys have been able to. I watched a little bit of Barcelona, and to Joe's point, it's so unconvincing. It's so like the rest of La Liga should really be ashamed if these dudes win a title again. They should not win this league. They shouldn't. It's so unconvincing, but I have this feeling that somehow Messi, even at like 60 to 70% capacity, can dig them out of title somehow. But it's not convincing.
They have 2 matches in hand right now in the Liga, but they're 9 points off of first. And Ansu Fati just tore his meniscus, so he's out.
Yeah.
For a hot minute.
This is the time. Somebody, they La Liga, you can't let Barcelona half sleepwalk their way to this title. So
4 months, Fati's out.
Yeah, Fati being out definitely hurts them big time. So that's some of the things we're gonna keep an eye on. International break. The main thing is guys coming back healthy. I think I can speak for Joe and my team, because we're not that good, does not have as many internationals as Chelsea and Man City. So I think if you're at Chelsea, Man City, this is about health. And guys just coming back healthy at this point because of the busy season that they were headed into. Zach, I know Zach, you follow U.S. men's national team. Talked about Pulisic being out. Anything going on with them during the international break besides that to kind of keep an eye on? I know we were kind of talking in the pre-production meeting about a possible managerial change. Maybe not right this minute, but down the line. Talk about that.
This is kind of my thinking more than I don't think there's anything really credible to back this up. But I would not be surprised to see Jesse Marsch as the men's national team next coach. Currently at Salzburg in Austria, part of the Red Bull Dynamo that you call whatever they are. But if Berhalter does not, maintain the support, or if he stumbles for any reason, he would be the first name I would call. He's doing really, really well at Salzburg. And he, we talked about, would he go to like Leipzig? If the Red Bull coaching tree expands and gets promoted, would Marsch go to Leipzig and Nagelsmith go to PSG or United? Would he go to the national team, or would he go, to like a Leipzig? And I really believe that he would go to the national team, given they're calling this the golden generation for the U.S. team. I I'm very intrigued to see how these young, very talented players start putting it together. We've not seen them, all together once. So this when Olympic qualifying comes in and that starts happening and you start seeing an 11 full of guys like Pulisic and Gio Reyna and Serginho Dest, Weston McKennie, those guys all play for Dortmund and Juve and Chelsea and Barcelona. This isn't the days where your best players are playing for the Chicago Fire, the Columbus Crew, the Vancouver Whitecaps, and some random team in Mexico.
Right.
This is a much different dynamic. So I'm very interested to see where they can put if they can put this together, because there's no excuses now.
The talent is certainly there, so there's no reason to fall back on any of the old excuses. So they have all the pieces in place, and they're all young, and they all are playing in the major leagues in Europe. So there's no excuses. Like you said, they got opportunity is now. So it's nice that this particular call up they brought in pretty much all the young guys. All the guys that they're hoping to build with are pretty much there in camp this break here. So I'm very interested to actually watch the two matches this time for the men's national team.
All right, so we're gonna close out the show with America's favorite segment, Know Your Role. We did the keepers the last time, so I'm gonna swing this back to Zach because this is definitely his baby. We'll let him start off. Zach, whose role are we gonna get to know today?
We're going to talk about the center backs. The middle of the defense, the heart of the defense, and I'm gonna start this by prefacing with, gone are the days of the giant, cumbersome, brick-feeted, 6'9" center backs who would throw you around, and be that immovable object. That is not today's game. Some of these center backs are faster than wing backs. They're faster than midfielders. So it's definitely a position after my own heart. I played defensive midfielder my entire life, but also like to play in the middle of the defense. So for me, it's a position that I really, really like.
So yeah, the center back is definitely a position that's evolved. Like you said, it's a lot more athletic. Maybe not quite as physical as what you were saying in the 90s and 2000s, where guys would kind of kick you all over the park. But it's definitely now you have it's football players, like guys who can make passes, guys who can dribble, bring the ball out. So it's definitely a position that advanced. Joe, we know your love for Vincent Company as a Man City fan. Other than Vincent Company, who's like, we can go to the past a little bit, like your guy, besides Vincent Company at the center back position, guy that you, just a couple of names that were your favorites.
Yeah, one of the guys before Vinny that I always followed and played with on FIFA actually resides in the heart of Chelsea defense. I was always a really big Thiago Silva fan. I liked watching Brazil play on the national stage, and I really enjoyed watching him play. So he was somebody that I earmarked as someone I like to follow. But obviously Vincent Kompany is my current day favorite all-time guy because his leadership qualities and what he did for my club can't be understated. So obviously him too. And as much as I dislike him as a player in Sergio Ramos, I like, if he was on my team, he's a guy that you would want to have on your team. But when you play against him, he's that dude that just drives you nuts and you can't stand him. And since he's not on my team, I can't stand him. But you can't really deny the success that he's brought with Real Madrid and been able to incorporate a lot of the modern day center back qualities that you're looking for with being able to carry the ball in the back, contribute goals going forward, spray passes from the back going forward with long balls and everything. Those are the current guys that kind of stood out for me that when we were talking about center backs in the modern day. So Silva, Sergio Ramos, and my main man, Vincent Company, are the three that I kind of pegged when we were first thinking about this.
I think for me, current day, obviously hurt now, but Van Dijk, I think Van Dijk, because Van Dijk has throwback center back side. Like back when center backs were 6'4", 6'5", across the board, he's like a 1997 built center back with 2020 athleticism, really smooth, can play the ball from the back. He's probably my favorite guy. Another guy that I like, a younger guy, he actually plays for Dortmund. I'm about to really mess his name up. But I know his name is Dan Axel. It starts with a Z. I don't want to mess his name up. But he's one of the young kids from Dortmund. 6'3", 6'4", really smooth. Got great positional sense. Sergio Ramos. Sergio is just big game Sergio. Sergio is gonna come up with a goal. Sergio is the rare center back that takes penalties, which I've never seen a center back that takes penalties. So those are just a couple of guys that kind of stand out. Zach, I know you had a guy, one who's close to your heart. Who is some of your present and get to your past guy that you really love?
The guy you're talking about is Dan Axel Zagadou.
Yeah, Dan Axel Zagadou. I like him.
I'm gonna have to look into him because I don't know a lot about him, but I just looked him up. So for me, I kind of made a mini top 5 of my favorite center backs of all time, and it's no real particular order other than number 1, and it's a mix of modern day players and old time players. So 5, kind of controversially, I have John Terry.
You had him only at 5.
5. Yeah.
That surprised me, but I want to hear the rest of your list.
And well, to caveat that, at 2, I actually have Sergio Ramos. So as much as I literally cannot stand that man, but you can't deny the man's talent. And so, but in between him at 4 and 3, I actually have a pair of teammates. And they might be the greatest center back partnership ever. They were the 98 World Cup champions of Laurent Blanc and Marcel Desailly. Yeah. Now, you want to talk about Virgil van Dijk. Virgil van Dijk is a modern day Marcel Desailly. Desailly was fast. He was physical. And, everybody gives credit to Laurent Blanc for being the best center back that France has ever had. I actually think Desailly was a better center back than what Blanc was because he was ahead of his time. He didn't have any problems moving forward. He didn't have any problems distributing the ball. So for me, those are 2 names that I think were severely underrated and very easily one of my favorites. At 1, though, I can't deny it. Ties into my German roots. Franz Beckenbauer, man. Like the only defender to win the Ballon d'Or twice. The only one. And I know he played a long time. And I know he played, for Die Mannschaft before they were Die Mannschaft. But the man was talented. He did it across multiple leagues. He did it on the national stage. And truthfully, and many people don't even realize this, but Beckenbauer and Pele were teammates in New York, the New York Cosmos.
Yeah.
So, and that's a really good team that nobody really ever talks about.
Yeah, and it showed you. You talk about Beckenbauer not only being the only person to win the Ballon d'Or twice. Center backs just don't win the award.
Period.
Yeah.
Like I think 2000, it was
2006.
2006 is the last time a center back.
I think it's Cannavaro, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So,
And he was that was the last time anybody was even nominated as a center back before Van Dijk recently. It's been like
Mm-hmm.
14 years between guys being actually just brought up and nominated for that.
right. Yeah. Ballon d'Or is like it's like being a quarterback in the like if you put up numbers, you're Ronaldo, Messi, you win the Ballon d'Or, but very rarely do guys who are not great offensive players win the award. But yeah, those are some names. Desai, uh, Vinny Company, like it's definitely it's not a glamour position anymore, but it's definitely not the Neanderthal position that it was 25 years ago, where all just the ugly guys played center back uh, back in. So that's know your role for the week. We definitely gonna have every time we're on live a new position. Zach gonna have a new position to explain to us and get the fans and our news some insight as to what these positions do. Before we close out, fellas, uh, we're gonna definitely try to do a little bit more frequently, but some things for the fans to look for. We talked about some of the coaching possibilities, the busy schedule, the injuries, anything else on the horizon over, let's say, the next 2 weeks as we kind of get toward the end of November for the people to look at.
It's one of those things. This is a really interesting time period, and I don't know if I have anything specifically that I want anybody to look at, but what I would urge people to do is this is a kind of a dull period, even with COVID restructuring sports. This is kind of a dull period for sports. You have the NFL, the NBA comes back in mid to late December. This is a peak time for you to kind of sit down and just watch.
Mm-hmm.
And I urge you to watch the Champions League. If you're a little apprehensive about watching soccer, go and watch a Champions League. Watch some of the biggest teams knock each other around and play, as we call it, the beautiful game. It's something that I think you will be thoroughly surprised in. And if you got the time to kind of dig into it, and if we like to call it here in the scene, get in the lab and kind of dissect, the game. I think you might be surprised how many similarities they have with all the other sports.
I think that might be our next show. Apart from keeping know your role, is what got you into the game, or what was like your first match or the first players. I think it could be something simple as that. And I know for me, we talk about this more in depth, it actually was the Champions League that actually got me into club football the way I'm into it now. And it was just one of them random cable finds one day, which we'll talk about later. But yeah, definitely this is a good time. The next, because first of all, it's going to be a lot of it on. So for the next 3 to 6 weeks, it's going to be a lot of football on. So I would definitely say, if this is your time to get into it, like if you really want to, Zach said, really kind of dip your toes into it, definitely now's the time. But that's going to be our next topic. What got you into this? I think that's going to be it. Joe, to kind of wrap us up, things to look for the next 3 weeks, or something for the people to look at.
I think Zach hit the nail on the head with that. Just delve into checking out some soccer now, because there's not a lot going on besides NFL right now. College basketball, that kind of stuff is coming back pretty soon. But check out some games. They always have replays on some of the networks that you can check out. ESPN has a lot of replays that you can check out. But coming out of the international break, there's 2 big Premier League games I think to keep an eye out for on the 21st of November, Saturday. You got Liverpool and Leicester, 2 teams in the top 3 of the table, and then you got Tottenham and Man City, which is going to be, hopefully, if Mourinho allows his team to do so, be it for some pretty wide open and attacking football. So those are two matches to really look forward to coming out of in the Premier League anyway, coming out of the international break.
Gareth Bale's going to start that game too.
Hey, the Gareth Bale revenge tour. I'm here for it. So remember, subscribe to the channel. Notifications on. You never know we're going to turn up. Facebook Stoppage Time FC is the Facebook group. This show will be airing on the Stoppage Time very, very soon. The Scene, capital T, lowercase HE, capital SCEN for the Scene. Subscribe to the Facebook page, the YouTube, everything. Shout out to our main man Mo behind the camera, Zach, Joe, Ron, Stoppage Time FC.